Weavers, iron smelters and factory owners. Indian textiles in the world market. Around 1750, India was by far the world's largest producer of cotton textiles before the British conquered Bengal. Indian textiles were famous both for their fine quality and beautiful craftsmanship. They were extensively traded in Southeast Asia, Java, Sumatra and Penang, and West and Central Asia. European trading companies began buying Indian textiles for sale in Europe from the 16th century. The Mughal emperors encouraged the arrival of the European trading companies because this trade was very profitable. Different words that tell us histories. There are many other words which point to the popularity of Indian textiles in Western markets. Muslin. European traders first came in touch of fine cotton cloth from India, carried by Arab merchants in Mosul, present-day Iraq. Therefore, they began referring to all finely woven textiles as muslin. Calico. Portuguese first came to India in search of spices in Calicut on the Kerala coast in southwest India, from where they took back the cotton textiles along with the spices to Europe. Came to be called calico, derived from Calicut. Subsequently, calico became the general name for all cotton textiles. Bandana. The word bandana now denotes to any brightly colored and printed scarf for the neck or head. Originally, the term derived from the word bandhana, Hindi word for tying, and denoted to a variety of brightly colored cloth produced through tying and dyeing. In these ways, the widespread use of such types of words shows how popular was Indian textiles in different parts of the world. Indian textiles in European markets. Worried by the popularity of Indian textiles, wool and silk makers in England began protesting against the import of Indian cotton textiles by the early 18th century. English producers wanted a secure market within the country by preventing the entry of Indian textiles. Therefore, in 1720, the British government passed a law banning the use of printed cotton textiles called chins in England. This act was called the Calico Act. Competition with Indian textiles led to a search for technological innovation in England. As a result, the spinning jenny was invented by John Kye 1764, which increased the productivity of the traditional spindles. In 1786, the invention of the steam engine by Richard Arkwright revolutionized cotton textile weaving. Now, the cloth could be woven in immense quantities and cheaply too. However, Indian textiles continued to dominate world trade until the end of the 19th century. Different European trading companies such as the Dutch, the French and the English made enormous profits out of this prosperous trade. These companies purchased cotton and silk textiles in India by importing silver. The decline of Indian textiles. The development of cotton industries in Britain affected textile producers in India in the following ways. Indian textiles now had to compete with British textiles in the European and American markets. Exporting textiles to England also became increasingly difficult because very high duties were imposed on Indian textiles imported into Britain. English-made cotton textiles successfully expelled Indian goods from their traditional markets in Africa, America and Europe by the beginning of the 19th century. As a result, thousands of weavers in India were now thrown out of employment, especially the Bengal weavers. Now, English and European companies stopped buying Indian goods and their agents no longer gave out advances to weavers to secure supplies. Therefore, upset weavers wrote requests to the government to help them. But British cotton cloth flooded Indian markets by the 1830s. Two-thirds of all the cotton clothes worn by Indians were made of cloth produced in Britain by the 1880s, which affected not only specialist weavers but also spinners. However, handloom weaving did not completely die in India because some types of cloths could not be supplied by machines. For example, saris with intricate borders or cloths with traditional woven patterns cannot be produced by the machines, which had a wide demand not only amongst the rich but also amongst the middle classes. In the 19th century, Sholapur in western India and Madurai in South India were towns emerged as important new centers of weaving. Later, Mahatma Gandhi urged people to refuse imported textiles and use hand-spun and hand-woven cloth during the national movement. Gradually, khaki became a symbol of nationalism and the charkha came to represent India. Impact of decline of Indian textiles. Many weavers became agricultural laborers. Some migrated to cities in search of work. Some others went out of the country to work in plantations in Africa and South America. Some of these handloom weavers also found work in the new cotton mills that were established in Bombay, now Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Sholapur, Nagpur, and Kanpur. Cotton textiles. The first cotton mill in India was set up as a spinning mill in Bombay in 1854 by Kawasji Nana Bhai. From the early 19th century, Bombay had grown as an important port for the export of raw cotton from India to England and China. Because it was close to the vast black soil tract of western India where cotton was grown. Over 84 mills started operating in Bombay by 1900. Many of these were established by wealthy Parsi and Gujarati businessmen. They had made their money through trade with China. Several mills were also established in other cities too, such as Ahmedabad and Kanpur. As the growth of cotton, thousands of poor peasants, artisans and agricultural laborers moved to the cities to work in the mills. The textile factory in India faced many problems in the first few decades of its existence because of competition with the cheap textiles imported from Britain. In most of the countries, governments supported industrialization by imposing heavy duties on imports which eliminated competition and protected newborn industries. However, the colonial government in India usually refused such protection to local industries. The first major burst in the development of cotton factory production in India was during the First World War, when textile imports from Britain declined. As a result, Indian factories were called upon to produce cloth for military supplies. Case study of wood steel. We begin the story of Indian steel and iron metallurgy by telling the famous story of Tipu Sultan. He ruled Mysore till 1799 and fought 4 wars with the British. He died fighting with his sword in his hand, which are now part of valuable collections in museums in England. His sword was special because it had an incredibly hard and sharp edge that could easily rip through the opponent's armor. His quality of the sword came from a special type of high carbon steel called woods. This type of steel was produced all over South India. Wood steel, when made into swords, produced a very sharp edge with a flowing water pattern which came from very small carbon crystals embedded in the iron. Francis Buchanan toured through Mysore in 1800, a year after Tipu Sultan's death, and has left us an account of the technique by which wood steel was produced in many hundreds of smelting furnaces in Mysore. Iron was mixed with charcoal in these furnaces and put inside small clay pots. Smelters produced steel through a complex control of temperature. Steel so produced were used for sword making not just in India but in West and Central Asia too. Although the wood steel making process was widely known in South India, it was completely lost by the mid-19th century. Swords and armor making industry died with the defeat of India by the British. Imports of iron and steel from England displaced the iron and steel produced by craftspeople in India. Iron and steel. All through in the late 19th century, India was importing steel that was manufactured in Britain, and expansion of the railways in India had provided a huge market for rails that Britain produced. Around the early 20th centuries there iron and steel industry started developing. The Tata Iron and Steel Company, TISCO, was set up at Sakshi, present-day Jamshedpur, in 1912 for producing steel. By the time TISCO was set up, the situation was changing. In 1914, the First World War broke out and steel produced in Britain now had to meet the demands of the war in Europe. Therefore, imports of British steel into India declined dramatically and the Indian Railways turned to TISCO for the supply of rails. TISCO also had to produce shells and carriage wheels for the war because the war dragged for several years. The colonial government was buying 90% of the steel manufactured by TISCO by 1919. Later, TISCO became the biggest steel industry within the British Empire. The similarity between iron and steel industries and cotton textiles was that expansion of both industries occurred only when British imports into India declined and the market for Indian industrial goods increased. This period happened during the First World War and after. Struggling to retain its control over India, the British government had to concede many of these demands in the last decades of colonial rule. Some other industries. Jute industry. The jute industry was concentrated in Bengal and most of the jute mills were owned by the British. Coal mining. From the mid-19th century, coal mining started in a big way in the country. Several coal mines of Bihar, Bengal and Odisha supplied coal for the following purpose: for use in the railway, for smelting iron or to make steel. Some other industries such as cement, paper, match, glass and sugar also developed during this period.